few things we're going to be speaking about. One of the most interesting things right now, three main topics, maybe one or two extra, but three main topics. One is all the riots with the No Kings protests. Cashapp and the money trail. The FBI is following the money trail from Charlie Kirk's assassination. That was on September 10th. And then, of course, the lockdown. So those are the main things we're going to talk about, maybe one or two things in between. And then I want to bring in, maybe it doesn't have a whole lot to do with this. I want to just keep it to the subject. People are asking as well in between, why are you not going to talk about Israel, what's happening in Israel, or, the Middle East. I was actually going to speak this week about, this Friday, I was going to speak about, the assassination of Christians in Nigeria by Muslims, and so the rising pressure there. It's worth reporting, and so I just want to add this before we continue with the podcast, that the only reason I'm not bringing it in today, although it really should be reported on, it should be spoken of from the pulpit, in my opinion, by preachers. America is asleep, the West is asleep, and they need to wake up of what's happening, and we need to be aware of what's going on, and we need to speak up. We need to speak out about these things. The only reason is that I felt in my spirit today that it's necessary to be speaking about the subjects I'm going to be speaking out on, and as we go on, you'll kind of understand. You'll kind of understand. So otherwise, I would not have done it this way. I would have focused on probably Israel, and then for sure on the assassination of the Christians in Nigeria. That's been going on, and so it's not a new thing. It's just, I believe the media is speaking out about it more. Is it possible that has become more extreme? I guess so, but it's not only started now. It's been going on for a long time. People are only slowly waking up now. Anyway, Brooke, if you can roll for me that first video on the list, I'm going to pull it up here. And just roll the video and we can get going that way. And so people can see it. That would be good. Thanks. So on the Google Doc I sent you, first one on that Google Doc.
Especially in light of the fact that it seems like members of the administration are reacting to political violence based on party affiliation. What's your plan?
I can only speak for myself and the FBI. And what we are doing is, I think I mentioned earlier, we're following the money, because whatever attack you are describing, and they are all despicable, equally so, people need money to operate. People need money to conduct these attacks, to conduct these investigations. And so what we are doing is finding the people that supported this infrastructure system, because even when you say there's a lone, quote unquote, lone wolf actor, he's not truly a lone wolf actor. Something happened along the way.
I agree. And so can I just because we have such little time.
Thank you. So it's interesting that if you watch the date revolving this, now of course when this report happened with Cashapp making this announcement, wasn't necessarily when the investigation started. So what I want to bring to light is Charlie Kirk's assassination. So watch the dates. Then shortly thereafter, the government shut down. And then as soon as the government shut down, and this is what's really interesting, as soon as the government shutdown happens, now the debate in the government shutdown, of course, I don't know how people still believe that, is that Trump shut the government down. Trump did not shut the government down. The reason the government shuts down in a situation like this is because the Democrats and the Republicans does not get on an agreement as parties, not as individuals, but as parties, as to the policies and the funding that is required to, run the government. So all of this is about funding, and in this situation, it is about funding, extra funding for the people of the country when it comes to medical stuff. So call it Medicare or whatever. So that's what it's about. And so the difference between the two parties, obviously, a Republican Party being capitalist and the Democratic Party being, and I'll be generous, very generous in saying this, because, they're actually more than socialists, but let's just call them socialists for now. That's the difference there. And so they disagree about the amount of funding that should go to the medical world or the medical industry. And so because of that, that's why the shutdown's happening. But what I want to bring to light is in these debates, what the Democrats are bringing, and I think we'll see it in one of the videos that we're going to pull up later, but what you'll see when you watch these videos is prominent Democrats are calling Trump a king. Now, the reason why this is important to note is because, and they do it right in front, in the House of Representatives, they do this all the time. The reason why this is important to note is because this is not something that comes from the people, okay? This is something that's instigated from the Democratic Party. How do we know this? Because if everybody's talking about this in the Democratic Party, of course it's instigated by the Democratic Party. Why would street people let me just give you a background of why I'm saying this. Why would street people in the city of Portland go on a No Kings protest? Homeless street people. Now, for those of you that haven't been in Portland, if you drive, we'd probably have one or two people internationally, South Africans and so on, watching right now, and you see a lot of homelessness in different parts of the world. But if you drive in Portland, it is one of the worst situations of homelessness in the entire world. I've spoken to Americans in Wisconsin, and they don't know what Portland's like. If I tell them, literally, I'm not over exaggerating, but if you drive in Portland, you'd have people living in tiny two-man tents. You can't even stand up straight in that tent, right next to the road. If you veer off 2 feet, you'd hit the tent. If you drive there, they're crapping in the street right next to you while you're driving, and this doesn't happen. There is nowhere else for them to go to the toilet. That's how they live in Portland. That's how homeless these people really are. I'm not talking about homeless as in, I live in a camper out somewhere or something like that. No. I'm talking about they're living in the street. There's no toilet. There's no running water for them. That's where they're living, right? That's how homeless they are. What would they know about if Trump's a king or not? I mean, half those people are uneducated. So I just wanted to bring that to light. And I think we're going to see this in some of these videos. So the reason I had her play this video first is because when it comes to the sequence in which things happen, right? The water is boiling right now for some politicians because they've got the head of the FBI after them. He just said, we are following the money trail. Everybody knows, every single individual in the, every conservative I know believes that that Antifa is funded by George Soros and the Democratic Party. That's what they believe. So right now, the water is boiling. I don't know. I mean, we'll find out in these investigations in the months to come who's really all behind it. But the water is boiling right now. Brooke, you can roll the next one on that list. Thank you.
You see all the different shiny objects they're trying to make everyone look at every day.
Day after day, Speaker Johnson has kept
crank the volume up a little.
Republicans on a taxpayer-funded vacation, canceling votes 4 consecutive weeks. They shut the government down, ran out of town, and now are nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, President Trump is busy demolishing the White House to build a ballroom to celebrate him like a king, and giving $40 billion to his right-wing dictator friend in Argentina, but can't find a dime to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits for tens of millions of Americans.
All right. Thanks, bro. Let it keep going. Let this video go back and let it keep going. Why is the volume off? You shut it down? Okay. All right. So, okay, no problem. So, what I'm bringing up here is it's exactly what he was saying in the beginning of the video. They're finding all the shiny objects, all right? So now they're complaining about now whether you agree or whether you do not agree with, Trump building a ballroom, whether you believe the funding came from private donors, not, through tax money, whatever you believe on that subject, whatever, okay? People have been adding to the White House. Trump's not the first president to do this, all right? He's not the first president to do this. So, and people's like, but why can't he fund, my medical bill? Well, whose medical bill is it? Yours or Trump's? When will people wake up and realize you can't have everything paid for you? I mean, seriously. Just think about the food stamp situation. I wish some people would go and live in different parts of the world and understand how things work. In a country where we're drowning, in the United States, where we are drowning in national debt, you want him to pay your medical bill? Like, let me ask you this. If somebody shows up at my door and asks me to pay their medical bill, what is the difference between that and asking the government to do it? It's still using other people's money. It's somebody else's tax money paying for that. When does this craziness come to an end, right? It can't carry on like that forever. People's like, yeah, but it's just, it's a funding policy. It's not a big deal. Just give them the money. Heck no, don't give them the money. You're out of your mind if you think that's the right thing to do. You'll sink this country into the ground if you keep doing that. So, Brooke, that last video I sent you on WhatsApp it's a short video. It's the very last one I sent you. If you can get that playing, it was just about an individual that doesn't want to be named that gave $130 million to pay the military. And I'm going to get to this in a second, but I want to show you this because it ties in with this video. Just play me that video. Just play me that one video.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
In the next couple of days, a lot of Americans are going to go without their first full paychecks. Federal workers.
By the way, a friend of mine, talking about donors, a friend of mine, a man that's great. I'm not going to use his name unless he lets me do it. Susie can tell you about this, but he called us the other day and he said, I'd like to contribute any shortfall you have because of the Democrat shutdown. I'd like to personally contribute any shortfall you have with the military, because I love the military and I love the country, and any shortfall, if there's a shortfall, I'll contribute it. And today he sent us a check for $130 million. I would love to tell you he doesn't really want the recognition, if you want to know the truth, but he gave us a check for $130 million, and that's going to go to which was sort of a shortfall, yeah. And that's going to go to the military, yeah.
And what's your message?
Is that the correct number? $130 million. That's what I call a patriot. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, bro. So I just want to bring two things to light here. The number one, right now, you cannot get funding from the government. It's impossible. It's the way the government is set up. So during a shutdown, funding for the government is not possible. That's just how it's set up. So meaning, if you believe that he's lying about this, that he got private funding for the military, you got a gap in your education. You need to go back. You need to read how the government's set up. You need to read the Constitution. You need to go back up and check those things. So why is the media not reporting on this? I'm going to tell you something. When the shutdown happened, the reason the shutdown happened was because they knew, the Dems knew, that when the shutdown happens, the Democrats knew that when the shutdown happens, the funding is pulled. When the funding is pulled, the military doesn't get paid. When the military doesn't get paid, guess what happens? They can riot, they can organize these riots, they can tear the country apart, get attention, and try and do certain things because the midterms are coming up. And so now, you know, when the military is not paid, Trump can't send out the military. He can't send out ICE. He can't send out, ICE. He can't send out ICE. He can't send out the military to, you know, stop these riots from happening. That's what they're all squealing about. When it comes to the riots, and we'll go to these things next. But when it comes to these riots, I mean, I know there's riots in different cities: Portland, New York, and Chicago. Those are the three main cities. Some other places too, but right now those are the three main ones. In my spirit, I just know that something's going on in the West. So, like on the West Coast, I've spoken out about it last night, actually, in one of our services. Prophetically, I've had a dream. I didn't speak about it. I should have spoken about it before, but I know that there's something brewing in the West. I don't know if the cartels are linked to this or not. Probably not. I don't know. But I do know that for some bizarre reason, something's going on in the West. So like the whole Pacific West Coast, something's going on there. And they're trying to pull something in that area. But I believe they're going to fail in it, and it'll come to light here probably in a month or two. And Brooke, if you can play for me the next video and the next one on that list. Yeah, just pull that boat up.
Moments ago saying, quote, earlier this morning on President Trump's orders, I directed a lethal kinetic strike on a narco trafficking vessel affiliated with designated terrorist organizations in the U.S. Southcom area of responsibility. 4 male narco terrorists aboard the vessel were killed in the strike, and no U.S. forces were harmed in the operation. The strike was conducted in international waters just off the coast of Venezuela moments ago.
All right, so it's, I mean, what has this got to do with everything? Maybe it's got nothing to do with the subject of the lockdown right now. Maybe this is just, you know, I don't know what it is. You know, who knows? But I will say this, that, you know, a lot of the leftist media, is speaking about, you know, how due process wasn't followed with these boats, you know, when they get shot down and everything. All that the Republicans are shouting, this is what I voted for. Yeah, so, I mean, what due process do you want to follow when it comes to illegal drugs coming into the country all the time? Everybody knows that Venezuela is one of the most criminal, drug-ridden organizations in the world, and they send all their product, the criminal product, to the United States. Everybody knows it. Everybody's spoken about it. You can go back prior to the elections and everything. The Democrats was talking about it all the time. Now that somebody's doing something about it, you know, oh, that's inhumane, that's inhumane. Well, I'll tell you what's inhumane. Inhumane is when millions of people die of illegal drugs coming into the country. So, yeah, to me, it's fascinating. I like watching that video. I'd watch it 10 times over. It gives me the greatest satisfaction seeing that thing flying into pieces. So if you're offended by that, you need deliverance. Seriously. Let me bring this mic a tad closer. Right. Okay, so let me see the comments for a second. Let me get to the comments here. Brooke, can you see any of the comments? No, I don't see them on the iPad either. Do I need to refresh? I mean, the screen showing the comments feed, but I don't know. Yeah, it's not coming up. Yeah, so Pastor Harrod commented here. Yeah, he's right about what he's saying there. It's extremely frivolous spending. I mean, let's just back up a second and talk about that. Because, when, one of the reasons, the reason why Musk, which I don't know if that 130 million check came from Musk or from who it came, who knows who it came from. I have a gut feeling it's probably, Musk that gave that check. I might be wrong, but regardless of whether that's accurate or not, the reason why Musk got so ticked off with Trump and the Republican administration during the time that they cut down on the spending when they asked Musk to help him was, in Musk's opinion, they didn't cut down enough. Meaning, the Republicans still didn't cut down enough to save this country according to proper business sense. So the Republicans is still overspending, was Musk's view on it. I agree with that. Am I a Musk fan just because he's South African? No, I mean, I'm not necessarily. I'm not like a Musk fan because of anything for that matter. But it is common, it's proper business sense to cut down on any kind of overspending, which at least they've done something about it. Fast forward, now we come to the shutdown. The reason for the shutdown is simply because of one reason. The reason for it is that people are, this is not just frivolous overspending. This is extreme frivolous overspending, right? So that's the reason for it. That's why the Republicans won't budge on it right now. In my opinion, they shouldn't give them anything. Yeah, so these guys are playing for time here. They're playing for time in this exposure. I watched Evangelist Jonathan Shuttles with podcast. I think it was the day after or right around when the Charlie Kirk assassination happened, and he said immediately, he said, this is Antifa. Obviously we know it's Antifa. The engravings on those shells, everything. Everybody knows it's Antifa. I mean, if you can't see it's Antifa, you've been brainwashed. And he said they need to go after Antifa and just nail them down from the one end of this country to the other. And so I believe that's what's happening right now with Kash Patel, head of the FBI, going after them. It's about high time this happens. So they're playing for time in this whole situation. That's what's happening. So, right. Brooke, I think I've sent you another one on WhatsApp. Let me go back here and see what I've sent you. Yeah, this is... Yeah, give me that. I like that. I like that one. That tells me a lot of what's going on. It's
It was
about
moving
time.
day at the Pentagon today, but it wasn't a happy one for reporters. Reporters, dozens of them, turned in their access badges and moved out of the Pentagon rather than agree to new restrictions on how they work imposed by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. The Pentagon wanted them to sign off on new rules that would subject them to being thrown out of the building just for reporting on things that the Defense Secretary had not approved previously. Journalists from outlets like the Associated Press and the New York Times refused to let their reporters sign the new agreements. Even some outlets that appeal to conservative viewers like Fox News Channel and Newsmax said they would not agree to the new rules. The journalists say they will continue to report on the U.S. military, but it isn't clear how much their lack of access will hinder them.
Let me add this. I don't necessarily, I don't actually support the narrative of this reporter at all. I support very few of the narratives of any reporter for that matter. But I wanted to show this video so that you can see that they're panicking because the things the media got away with, and I'm not here necessarily only speaking about the left-wing media, extreme left-wing media, but I am also talking about media in general. There's been some discrepancies on all platforms, including Fox News, and so on and so forth. So there's been things all over the place. But finally, the media is being held accountable for certain things, and this is high time. There is in the past, and don't have the time to go into it right now, but in the past, there has been some laws that has changed in this country that is, allowed the media to do things kind of whatever they want, and they're not being held accountable, and they're not being held responsible. So I think that's one of the reasons why they're pushing the riots right now. I'll say this again. You can see the same thing in South Africa. When I remember Pastor Gerrit can help me on the dates here, because I might have the dates wrong. I think this was like 2021 maybe, when they had those extreme vandalism and riots in KZN, and everything was burning down. They were burning everything down, looting everything, the same kind of thing. And they acted like it was the people that was like fed up with the government, and they were rioting, and they were vandalizing and carrying on and everything. Me and Leslie happened to be on a business trip during that time, and we had to go through all those things. It was like a war zone. Literally, tires burning, people, cars couldn't get, the roads was blocked off. We had to stay at an Airbnb in the mountains for 2 days before we could get out of that situation. And even then, we had to, keep our eyes wide open and put pedal to the metal going through those, because everything was on fire. So of course that was an extreme situation. Afterwards, about a year or two afterwards, and again, I might not have the time frame correct here, but about a year afterwards, it came out that it was all organized by a certain political party, and it was funded. Those people got paid to loot, and so I'm just telling you right now what's happening with these riots. It's not the people. Those people are too dang poor. Or out on the West Coast, you see the same thing in California. The amount of homelessness, drug addicts living like. When I was in California with Tom Scarella, when it was earlier this year, we had a conference there, and I went. While I was waiting, I was actually sitting up for the conference, and so I was there before most of the other people was there. I went and took a drive. The amount of homelessness in California is scary. It's absolutely, absolutely scary. Those people can't worry about riots. They're worrying about their next meal. Same in Portland's worse. Portland is way worse than California. When you drive there, it's insane. I mean, I'm telling you, those tents are. So, I don't know. I don't even know how a tall person can sleep in that tent, not have his feet stick out the other end. You can't stand up straight in that thing. It's sitting right on the pavement, right next to the pavement. If you veer off, you hit somebody. Those people can't be worried about rioting, you know. Yeah, you know, if you go to cities like Madison or Milwaukee, and you know, yeah, you got a bunch of people from the ghetto or from liberal neighborhoods, or you know, maybe it's not the ghetto, maybe it's a wealthier middle class neighborhood, but they still want to riot because they want to have their voice heard, and they've been brainwashed. You get some of that in between, but not in Portland. Not in Portland. So, yeah. So I'm going to tell you something right now. They're going to get behind this thing pretty soon, and you know, yeah, that was in July. July. Yeah, that's right. That was in the winter. July of 2021 was when all those riots was happening in South Africa. So, praise God. So people's like, I'll just add this as we, you know, I'm just going to add this in, is people's like, well, why do you as a Christian leader speak out about these things? Because nobody else does. Well, that's a lie. I know other people that do, but there's not enough. You know, Christians needs to be aware of what's going on. Why is this going on? And I'll add this in. I'm not going to be much longer on this podcast, but people ask me, why are you not right now reporting on Israel, the peace in Israel? I think it's phenomenal what Trump is doing in Israel right now. I'm not against it. It's not that I don't want to report on it. I just felt that this situation right now is more important. Because if the media in this country doesn't get, if there's no judgment, no retribution for the media in this country will keep going downhill. The number one reason why we see all the things happening in this country that's not supposed to be happening is the media. The media is the biggest reason. So I'm pretty excited for what's happening. You know, they act like, you know, Trump's a king and Trump's this and Trump's that. It's all, that is a created narrative. It's not a natural narrative. It's a created narrative by the Democrats and the media. And now they're squealing because nobody can do anything about it. They can't do anything about it. So that's what all this stuff is about. Amen? So, well, now I got something I can look at. Hey, honey, I didn't even see your comment there. Yeah. So, I'll bring this in. I do think that, you know, for the next podcast, I'm definitely going to talk about Israel, and I will be talking about this thing of, you know, the Muslim persecution against the Christians. People want to focus on one particular issue in Nigeria, and yes, that should be spoken of. People should be made aware of it. But also at the same token, that's been going on, like I said, for a long time. So why throw yourself at it right now? That is, let me put it like this. That is something that has to be sorted out within the narrative of this country. Because everybody that believes, you know, I see people driving around. I can't stand it when I see this happening. It drives me absolutely crazy. You see a narrative of Christians driving around with these stickers of coexist. It doesn't work like that. You might be able to do that as a Christian. You can coexist as a Christian. I'm telling you right now, the Muslim world cannot. I'm not going to say any more than that. I'll leave this for the next podcast because I'm going to get people riled up about it. And I'd rather do it properly than do half a job. So, yeah. So we'll just leave it for the next podcast so you have an idea of what I'm going to be speaking about. And I'm going to bring in different video footage from different places so people can understand the Muslim world and what that is, how that works. If you haven't been in another country, you should rather not go down that train because you don't know what you're getting yourself into. Right. So let me pull something up here for a second. I believe that this, I'll just comment on this on the closing, is because people's asked me. I got asked by an individual yesterday that's a part of the congregation. I made a post last night. We prayed about it as a congregation for the people that attended, or with the people that attended. And I had a dream the night before the lockdown happened, and in the dream, I'm not going to give you all the details, but basically what it is, there's an attack on the head. There's an attack on, I believe, the president and on the country for that matter, and it needs to be cut off. So this thing needs to be cut off. So there's stuff that needs to be cut off here. And I believe it is this extremism that's trying to find an entrance again, and it's high time. I'll say this: it's high time that those things be cut off. The funding for unnecessary spending needs to be cut off. Because the moment that happens, things will autocorrect itself. I'll give you an example. Pastor Harrod's on this feed. He'll know what I'm talking about. Right now, because of the sanctions in South Africa, it is tough. It's tough economically. It's tough financially, because a huge part of the money that went into that country that helped the economy was not only grant money, or let's call it free money, that went into South Africa from the U.S. government, but the U.S. was the only country, here now clearly, is the only country that traded with the United. It wasn't the biggest trade partner, but it was the only country that traded with South Africa as a trade partner when South Africa was not in a deficit with the trade deals, meaning we got more money in than when we spent, right, on that particular country. China, everybody's like, yeah, but China's a bigger trade partner. Well, that's not a great deal if you spend more money on buying from China than you make getting in from China. So the same principle follows through everything. When the money is cut off for unnecessary spending, things will set themselves straight. The politicians in South Africa, the corrupt, criminal politicians, gangster politicians, is squealing right now, and they'll continue squealing. There's some serious injustices happening right now with people being assassinated and stuff like that, and I don't have time to go into the details of it right now. But it's happening, and the reason why these things are happening is because things are being set straight. And people, people don't have the money. It's been funded, I'll say this loud and clear on camera, it's been the corrupt, criminal, gangster politicians. It's been funded in South Africa by the Democratic Party for a very, very long time through government grants. The only reason things are starting to shift right now is because funding is set straight. Funding is not going to the wrong people anymore. So, yeah, that's what they do, exactly. They recycle the money into corrupt officials' accounts. Stupid spending is actually used for nefarious purposes. That's correct. Yeah. So people don't want to talk about that, but that's a fact. Right, so, yeah, it's, people's like, oh, the lockdown's terrible, the lockdown's terrible, the lockdown's terrible. It's uncomfortable right now for a lot of people. I'm frustrated with it too, but people's like, well, just give them the money, negotiate on something. No, drain them. Empty their pockets. Suffocate them. Stop feeding these fat suckers. Yeah, just they need to become anorexic from a lack of resources. Then everything will get straightened out. People's like, well, Republicans have done that too. I have no grace for any Republican that has a socialist mindset. I've gone after them in the past. You sound extremist. No, that's common business sense. How is it that in a country, let me ask this question. How is it that in a country, when it comes to business, everybody wants to do everything to business according to business principles, but the organization that has the most money coming through it with our tax money, oh no, they just need to go by social principles, no business principles there. That's how brain dead some people has become. Pastor, what are you doing? Drinking your coffee and riling people up? No, I'm just trying to get common sense back into some people's heads. You send me something again? What's that? Oh, all right. So, yeah, so stay tuned. Next week, Friday, we'll jump on some of the other topics. And we just started this podcast last Friday. I'm not somebody that's necessarily into the whole political thing all the time. I mean, I kind of know what's going on most of the time. But I've just realized that there's a lot of Christians that is sick of some of the narratives. And because Christian leaders aren't speaking out about these things, nobody knows where they're standing. Nobody knows what's going on. And the ones that does have common sense, they just kind of disappear into the silence because it's agonizing watching Christian leaders being so silly and stupid. And people with common sense in business is just like, it's painful. Like I said, it's painful watching people just either being neutral. Just being neutral is painful in itself. I speak to business people all the time, Christian business people. Honestly, it's painful when Christian leaders don't stand up and say something. And I'll say this in closing, and then we're going to go off the air. I am so sick of this narrative, Christian narrative, of we need a separation between church and state. That is not a part of your Constitution. Yes, there is written into the Constitution that the government can't overrule the church, but that doesn't mean the church doesn't have a voice in what's going on in the country. Doesn't mean that. So I'm going to be speaking about that in one of these podcasts, if not the next one, probably the one after that. And I'm going to be speaking about some stuff on the Constitution and stuff that Christians need to know that they probably don't. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Share this broadcast. And if you have any comments about things you think need to be brought up, leave it in the feed. We'll pick it up in the feed. We'll comment on it even afterwards. And maybe, if you say, listen, would you speak about this? I'm not going to promise that I will, but I would most certainly consider it. And if it's worthy speaking about, I'll definitely bring it into one of the podcasts, and maybe even the next one. So if you're watching this, comment in there. Tell us what it is that you'd like us to speak about. I'm not going to speak about nitty-gritty things that's not important. I want to keep it on the mainline thing, so keep that in mind. So if I, don't think I'll be ignoring you, but I want to keep it on the main things that's important and current at the time. So thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Be blessed.